What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we start off our second week of talking about the Paladin with the Oath of Conquest. So if you are out to conquer all that there is to conquer, this might just be the class for you. But how does it compare to other subclasses? That's what we're going to find out today. But before we do, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please don't be one of those people. Help us to reach our goal of 5,000 by the end of this year. I think we can do it, but I need your help in order to get there. And of course, make sure you share the video and of course, click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Conquest Paladin is all about combat, fighting, leading your allies into battle and coming out victorious, and doing it in a way that pretty much insults the people that you are killing. You don't just want to kill them. You want it to be a display. You want it to be a full-on conquering. And I think that's a very interesting way to go about combat. Definitely an interesting character concept. But let's take a look at what we actually get here and compare it to the other subclasses of Paladin. Starting off at level 3, of course, we get our Oath spells and we get Channel Divinity. So starting off with our Oath spells, we get these spells here up on the screen. Ones that stand out to me are things like Armor of Agathis, which could be a little interesting, Spiritual Weapon more than anything, Stone Skin, Cloud Kill, that kind of thing. Overall, this is a pretty good spell list, and I think that it actually gives us a lot of really cool options. They can be very nasty in some ways, but in some other ways, it can also be a little redundant. So our Dominate Beast and Dominate Person, those can be pretty decent, but Hold Person becomes redundant once we reach level 7. And so that's a little interesting that I'm not so keen on, at least in most situations. There are times when it won't be, but overall, that one's a little redundant. So I can't give this a full 10 out of 10, even though it is a pretty good list. And there's also Bestow Curse, and so that's kind of eh. So overall, I'm going to give this spell list an 8 out of 10. There's some good options on here, but they do, in the course of trying to fit the theming, they do kind of run into each other a little bit. And so that part I'm not so much a fan of. For our Channel Divinity, we get a couple of options here, like always, and the first is going to be Conquering Presence. This basically gives us a 30-foot radius that we can choose creatures within, and it can exclude our allies, which is great. And as an action, we can force a Wisdom saving throw, or else all of those creatures that we chose become frightened of us for 1 minute, and that lasts until the end of their turn when they can make the save again. Of course, if they fail to save, then it continues. We also get Guided Strike, and so this is actually very similar to the War Cleric, which we talked about not too long ago, and this gives us a +10 to an attack roll. So this is just one attack roll, one use of this, but this could be definitely interesting, at least on a Paladin. So are these any good? The fear effect is pretty cool, right? And it kind of ties into everything that we are talking about with this subclass. It's going to go into our Aura of Conquest at level 7. Fear is already needed, so it's good that we get this here. The problem is that fear is a very commonly resisted status condition. So that's going to be really tough, right? Outside of charm and poison, this one is probably going to be your most common one. And so for that reason, this becomes a little bit less useful overall, because you're going to run into a lot of things that just don't do anything with this. So that's a little tough. Guided Strike, however, is pretty good. And I think on a Paladin, it gets a lot more use than it does on a Cleric. I don't think I gave this very high points when I talked about it in the Cleric. But for this, where we're talking about things like smites and your bonus action smite spells and that kind of thing, then this really starts to show a lot more value than that. Plus, of course, you've got your bonus action that you can use for Spiritual Weapon and that kind of thing. So this just makes sure that you get the most out of your turn. So I think that that's actually not that bad. But Conquering Presence, I think, is going to be good some of the time when you aren't running into all of these creatures that are resistant to the frightened condition. Because of that, I've got to take a notch off here, and I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10 on this. Because fear is such a heavily resisted status condition, I can't give this full points. And we are a mad class here, and so our charisma may not always be the best to help with that saving throw DC. So for those reasons, I can't quite give it a 10. At level 7, we get Aura of Conquest, and so whenever a creature is within 10 feet of us and is frightened of us, then they actually become stuck where they are. Their speed becomes 0, and they also take psychic damage equal to half of our paladin level if they start their turn within that radius. And of course, this aura, just like all the other auras, will increase to 30 feet at level 18. So this can be pretty nasty, right? You run up to a creature and say, I'm gonna kill you. You point out your weapon at them and do your Conquering Presence, and they fail that saving throw. You step up within 10 feet and they fail that save again to try to get away. They're not going anywhere, right? They can't run away. They then fail the save after that in order to end their turn. Or even if they succeed on their turn, they still can't run away because it's at the end of their turn. So you have effectively locked down that creature. The thing is, this is an aura. This is not limited to one creature. This could affect multiple creatures. And so as long as they have to waste their turn trying to get away from you, then this becomes incredibly potent. Just like what we said in the last thing, if you have creatures that are resistant to the frightened condition, then obviously you're going to run into some problems there. But ultimately, this is pretty nasty. I've got to give this a 9 out of 10 as well, as it can't be full points again because it does ride on that frightened condition, but it's pretty nasty once it's landed. At level 15, we get Scornful Rebuke, and this actually allows us to basically deal extra damage whenever someone hits us with an attack, which is pretty cool. So with this, whenever a creature hits us with an attack, it doesn't say a weapon attack, it just says an attack. We can deal psychic damage to that creature equal to our charisma modifier as long as we are not incapacitated. That is not limited to once per turn. That does not take our reaction. That just happens. So something with multi-attack hits us a few times, that is a bunch of damage that's going on. And psychic damage is going to be pretty good, right? There aren't a lot of creatures that resist psychic damage. There are a few, but not that many. So this is pretty good, right? I think that you're going to get a lot of use out of this. There's not a range on this. So somebody hits you with an arrow from a really long way away, they're still going to take that damage. Doesn't say that you have to be able to see the creature. None of that. So all of those things don't matter. You just deal extra damage, which is going to be pretty good. Overall, because the damage is going to add up like that, I've got to give this another 9 out of 10. I think it's a pretty strong feature because it's just every single attack. You're going to be dealing with a lot of creatures that have multi-attack by this point, and so they're going to be taking hopefully 4 to 5 damage every single time they hit you, which can really add up over time. Finally, at level 20, we get Invincible Conqueror, and if we weren't insane enough already, then let's just add this on, why don't we? So for 1 minute, of course, we can activate this as an action, and we get 3 of the following things. First up, we have resistance to all damage. We also can take an extra attack on our turn as part of the attack action. And finally, any weapon attack that we have that is a 19 or a 20 is a critical hit. So that's pretty good, right? That's pretty insane. So resistance to all damage, that is essentially the 3rd level of Barbarian in the Totem Warrior, right? Plus psychic damage, which makes sense with this subclass. So that's pretty great. When we take the attack action, we get an extra attack, which is pretty great, especially considering that we have a weaponized bonus action in Spiritual Weapon. So that's pretty great. And again, that lasts for a minute. And then we have a 10% chance to crit now instead of just 5, which is also huge. This is a 10 out of 10. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, it's only once per long rest, but I really don't care. I think this is an absolutely fantastic feature. So where do we land on the Oath of Conquest Paladin? This thing's pretty cool, right? And honestly, I hear a lot of people online, as I'm doing research for these, that think that this is one of the best out there. I've also seen some people who think that it's kind of trash because of the fear effect being what it is. And so I honestly think it falls somewhere in the middle of those two things. So to me, the fear effect affects quite a few creatures, but obviously there are some things that are immune to the fear effect. And so that can be pretty devastating as it knocks out half of your 3rd level feature and your entire 7th level feature. So that can feel pretty bad, especially up until you get another feature at level 15. So it's pretty punishing, right? However, Guided Strike is still pretty good, and we have a really good spell list to fall back on. So like I was saying, we have Hold Person if we have somebody who isn't necessarily held up in that aura in order to keep them in their place. Now, obviously, Hold Person is a little bit more nasty than the other one just because of the ability to crit if you were to hit them. But obviously, they're going to have to fail that save and all that good stuff too. And our charisma modifier isn't going to be the best, most likely. So that can be a little bit tough as well. But then once we get to level 15 and level 20, then we look pretty good, right? Everything is really, really good once we get there. But like I said in last week's video, we really can't count those as heavily when it comes to our ranking just because they come online so late. So where does this land overall? I really think that this lands at a 9 out of 10. I think it's really good. I don't think that it's the best paladin out there. I think there are a couple others that are better, but I do think that it is really good. The immunity to fear is pretty bad, but you do still have a really good spell list to go off of. You do still have Guided Strike to help you with your smites. And so for all of that, you're still getting a pretty good amount of value here. Plus, whenever you run into something that's not immune to fear, then you really start to cook. So overall, I still think that this is a really good subclass overall. So what do you think of the Oath of Conquest Paladin? I would love to know down in the comments below. Do you think I went too high with it? Do you think it should have been a 10 out of 10? Let me know down below. Of course, later this week, we're going to be building one of these together, and I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And then finally, this weekend is when that video I've been talking about is going to go up. The people that I've been waiting on to do their thing have taken a lot longer than what I expected. And so I am thinking that it will be done by this weekend. And so that way I can actually make a video about it. So at that point, then we will have some pretty exciting things that I'm going to be doing on the channel. And I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.